I'm about to write an argumentative essay and you're coming with me. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take this outline right here, break it down line by line until it's turned into this completed paper over here. By the way, if you'd like to download this outline for future reference, you can do so with the link in the description below. As you do that, we're going to jump right into my computer where you can see we have the outline and our paper started. That's the title page. We're formatting this in APA formatting. Feel free to use any other formatting standard, just adhere to their guidelines. And so the starting information that we need in order to write this paper is this right here. So the topic for our argumentative essay is going to be, is working from home more effective than in-person work? The argument we're going to make is that yes, working from home is indeed more effective than in-person work. The two supporting arguments we're going to use is going to be that it increases productivity and there is a benefit of cost savings. When we get to our opposing argument, we're going to argue that there is a higher risk of distractions at home. Our rebuttal, we're going to rebut this by saying distractions are not exclusive to remote work and that autonomy fosters productivity. Okay, cool. By the way, if you're curious how we came up with this topic, these arguments, or how I created this outline, for example, or any of the strategies I'm going to use to write this paper today, this is the example portion of a 2-part video series. So if you want to know how to write an argumentative essay, do check out that video first. This is simply the implementation of that video. So with everything we have now, let's take a look at our paper on the right-hand side. As you can see, we have our lovely title page ready to go. The title we're going with is The Effectiveness of Working from Home versus In-Person Work. But since we're using APA formatting, the first section heading, the heading for our introduction, is always going to be the title for our paper. So you're going to copy that and paste it as you see I have here, again signifying the introduction. From there, you can see I've created an outline using section headings based on the information we have here. So these are the key points we're going to discuss that we would have found in our research process. And so now let's take a look at this outline, and I'm going to go through each bullet point and create the content that I'm going to include in this paper. Matter of fact, I'm going to color coordinate this just to make it even easier to understand. 1 second. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump right into this introduction. As you can see, it's broken down into 4 parts. These are the 4 parts any introduction for an academic essay should contain. So here you have your hook. This is the opening statement. And for an argumentative essay, I simply like to introduce the topic for the argument, not your stance, just the argument itself. So here we have the effectiveness of working from home versus in-person work. Next, you want to include some background information. And for this, I think the easiest thing you can do is define any of the key points from your argument. So in this case, we're going to define working from home and define working in person. That's going to lead right into where you're going to want to introduce the key points to be discussed. And note how it says neutrally. That is the key here, in that you're not taking a stance yet, you're just introducing the points to be discussed, in other words, the main objectives in your paper. Then you're going to include your thesis statement, which for an argumentative essay is where you're going to go ahead and take that position on the argument. For ours, we're going to state that the benefit of remote work far outweighs its drawbacks, making it a more effective model for the modern workforce. So using this information, a good introduction for this argument might look something like this. All right, what we have here is the COVID-19 pandemic has redefined workplaces, with remote work becoming the new norm for many industries. Working from home allows employees to complete tasks remotely using digital tools, while traditional in-person work relies on physical office settings. Remote work has been shown to enhance productivity and reduce overall costs, though there is a potential risk of increased distractions from working at home. However, the benefits of remote work far outweigh its drawbacks, making it a more effective model for the modern workforce. All right, That's a simple introduction, but it works for this paper. And in our thesis statement, since that introduces our stance on the argument, this is why I like to go right into our arguments supporting this, because it's a natural progression. And so I'm going to do the same thing. We're coming over here to our outline. I'm going to color coordinate it and include the information we're going to use to write this section. So in order to start this section, we need to introduce our first argument, which is going to be the increased productivity of working from home. Next, we want to explain with any relevant details or provide context. The 3 details we're going to give is that we're going to describe that there are fewer workplace distractions, that people will spend less time on commuting, which leads to better focus, and the employees can work during their most productive hours. On top of that, we want to provide evidence or some form of an example. And in this case, we found a study by Stanford University that shows a 13 increase in productivity for remote workers. And then we would finish by concluding this supporting argument. Note that it says link to next supporting argument. This simply refers to using transitional language. Okay, but just as before, let's go ahead and paste in the example paragraph that we could use based on these bullet points. Here's what we have. One of the most significant advantages of working from home is the noticeable increase in productivity among employees. Unlike traditional office settings where distractions such as unnecessary meetings, office gossip, and constant interruptions are common, remote work allows individuals to focus on their tasks with fewer disruptions. Additionally, eliminating long commutes saves time and energy, which can be redirected towards work. Remote work also enables employees to align their tasks with their peak productivity hours, ensuring they perform at their best. For example, a Stanford University study found that remote workers saw a 13% increase in productivity due to quieter environments and better time management. By reducing distractions and offering greater flexibility, working from home enhances both individual performance and overall organizational efficiency. So as you can see, I simply took these points, these things we would have come up with during our research process, and I flushed them out into coherent sentences, forming a paragraph for this first supporting argument. We're simply going to repeat this process for the next supporting argument. So here we go. Let's paste in our information. And then, just like before, we're going to use this to create the content for our paper. And so we might come up with something like this. All right. For cost savings, I'm just going to go ahead and read through the paragraph since you have a pretty good idea of the process we're going through. So what we have here is another major benefit of working from home is the substantial cost savings for both employees and employers. Employees save money on commuting expenses, dining out, and professional attire, which can greatly improve their financial well-being over time. Employers, on the other hand, reduce costs associated with maintaining physical office spaces, such as rent, utilities, and supplies. For instance, large companies such as Twitter, Microsoft, and Dropbox have reported significant savings by embracing remote work and downsizing office spaces. By lowering financial burdens for both parties, remote work proves to be a cost-effective and substantial model for the modern workforce. So now we have our 2 supporting arguments. The next part of this paper is where we're going to outline our counter-argument. And as you can see from the outline, the formatting is the same as the supporting arguments. So we're going to introduce our counter argument. We're going to explain it with relevant details and context. We're then going to provide any evidence or examples, and we're simply going to conclude our argument. So same process as before. I'm going to paste in the details we're going to use to craft this counter argument. As you can see here, what we're going to be introducing is that there are distraction risks at home. Then the relevant details we're going to include are going to be that home environments lack the structure and focus of an office, as well as interruptions at work that could come from family, pets, or household chores. And then finally, we found an example survey that states that 45% of remote workers report working less hours due to engaging with household chores. So same thing, coming over to our distraction section, or our counter section, pardon me, I'm going to paste in an example paragraph. Here's what we have. A common criticism of working from home is the heightened risk of distractions, which can severely impact productivity. Unlike traditional office environments that are designed to promote focus and professionalism, home settings often lack structure and can be filled with interruptions. Family members, children, pets, or even the temptation of household chores can pull employees away from their tasks, disrupting workflow and reducing efficiency. For example, a survey conducted by Digital.com found that 45% of remote workers reported working less hours due to engaging with household duties. This lack of controlled environment can make it difficult for employees to maintain the same level of focus and discipline as they would in traditional workplace. But that concludes our counter argument, and since we only have one, now we're going to move right on to the rebuttal. And the rebuttal uses just a little bit different of a structure. So what we're going to do, because we're not really going to introduce our rebuttal, we're going to start by considering the counter argument. So the best way to do this is simply acknowledge that, yeah, it's true, because if you're working from home, of course there's going to be an opportunity for distractions, and we're going to rebut this by simply saying distractions are not exclusive to remote work. So that's going to be our main point that we're going to use to then dismiss this argument, and then it's really important that you explain why. Provide an example, usually a good example. You want to use that directly rebutes the example or evidence that was used in the counter argument. So let me show you what I mean. So same thing, let's go ahead and paste in our information. As you can see, we're going to consider by stating something along the lines that yes, working from home can present distractions. We're going to dismiss it by saying distractions are not exclusive to remote work and that autonomy fosters productivity. And then for our evidence, we're going to include a report that we used that found that 91% of remote workers are more productive when they're able to control their environment, requiring less time needed to perform their work. So in a way, this example, it kind of dismisses exactly what the counter was trying to use to make their argument. So you can understand this better, let me go ahead and paste in the content here. All right. What we have here, everything considered, while home environments can present distractions, that's where we're considering the argument. We then begin our dismissal by saying this argument overlooks that distractions are not exclusive to remote work, as traditional offices often include interruptions like chatty coworkers, noisy environments, and unnecessary meetings. Remote work offers employees the autonomy to design their workspaces and schedules, fostering focus and productivity. A report by Buffer found that 91% of remote workers feel more productive when they control their environment, allowing them to work during their most productive hours and maximizing their performance, requiring less time needed to perform work-related duties. Ultimately, the flexibility and autonomy of remote work enables employees to overcome distractions and achieve higher productivity. So note how this essentially dismisses what was going to be used as the counter argument to the argument we're trying to make. And so now that we have our entire argument outlined, we have introduced it, we've included our two supporting details. We've included a counter to our supports. We then included a rebuttal to that counter. Now we're good to go ahead and wrap up and conclude this paper. What's nice about the conclusion is that you already have all the information you need to write this because you're not coming up with any new information. Matter of fact, the way I like to teach a conclusion is that you're going to mirror what you included in your introduction minus the background details because you no longer need that. So you're going to start by restating your thesis statement, which is going to bring the reader back to the purpose of your paper, in this case, your side of the argument. Then you're going to summarize the main points you made. In this case, it's going to be your two supporting arguments and the counter argument. And that's going to leave you with your concluding statement, which is going to be your final impression of this argument. So using the information I have here, my conclusion would be simple. It would be this. Working from home is a more efficient model for the modern workforce than requiring employees to perform in-person work. When implemented correctly, the benefits include enhancing productivity as well as significantly reduced costs for the company. While concerns about potential distractions exist, these challenges can be mitigated with the right tools and practices. As the workplace continues to evolve, employers should embrace flexible remote work policies and invest in resources that address its challenges. By doing so, organizations can create a more cost-efficient, productive, and inclusive work environment for the future. But with that, our paper is officially complete, and I'm curious, what are your current beliefs on working from home versus in-person work? Also, if you have any other video topics that you'd like the Smart Student to cover in the near future, be sure to drop those down in a comment below.